Okay, so again we're here with Mr. Adam Hawkins. I'm trying to start a nickname for him. And this is his winning Sceptile deck. Now we're going to get you to talk us through the list and why you chose the deck. And we've already covered matchups and stuff, so why don't you start with what made you choose the deck for the day? Or
Well, Jake kidnapped my family and forced me to play the deck. No,
well,
it just felt like
we're editing this out. I'm going to get on some kind of list and not the good ones.
No, it's just a strong deck versus the format. It's relatively equal with a lot of decks. Raise its only hard. Well, it's its hardest meta matchup.
Okay.
Obviously, Quad Camera Up or something other stupid. Quad Macargo probably beat it, but
Dude, Quad Macargo, that's next level. We need to make that. Quad Macargo for next week. Okay, so how did this is, well, not really an unusual list because it makes a lot of sense to me, but it's not been seen much elsewhere. Like, how did this list come about? What happened? I'm trying to get some credit here.
So Ben Tolsky.
You said it right.
Made this list.
Okay.
He liked the Sceptile, didn't want to try and pair it with anything because he thought that was stupid, I think.
Well, I would say it's not more that it's stupid, it's more that, like, it's its own best partner.
Well, without scoop ups, it looks horrible because it's only doing 100 damage and you're going to have to energy retrieve every turn. With scoop ups, it looks fine.
Because, can you explain really... Well, we'll get onto the specific card choices so in a bit, so don't worry. But, yeah, basically, chose the deck. It seems quite strong. Now, any of your other team, no one else played it that day. Why were they so retarded to not play it? Why did one of them pussy out at the last minute? I will cut this out, don't worry.
Yes. So Jake Walvin was originally going to play this deck, but then he decided that he wasn't confident enough with it and wanted to play Tunities instead, as he thought that was going to be best deck in format.
I don't think it's good.
Obviously, he has a deck which he's very confident in, has been playtesting for multiple weeks.
Shh, don't tell anyone.
I'm not going to say what the deck is. You might see it if you pop along to Sutton Coldfield.
I hope we get this uploaded. Yeah, we'll get it uploaded before then.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so, alright, that's, that kind of made you choose it, but what were there any matchups you feared? What did you play test against?
As I was saying, Ray is the one you feared most. We didn't play test it at all.
Well, you played like 3 games.
Not against Ray.
No, not against Ray.
We never play tested the hardest matchup for some reason. We actually thought that Toad Tina was an easy matchup. After playtesting, we found out it was a bit harder than before.
Yeah. It's
to the
not
point
just
where you told me that Toad Tina probably beats it more often than not.
I think it's about 40-60 to Toad Tina, as in 60-40 to this.
Yeah, which makes sense.
So not more often, but yeah.
But yeah, it's just a strong deck.
Yeah, it's I'd say, and I think I said it in the last video, that it's kind of 55-45 against the format on average.
Yeah, either in or against its favour.
Yeah, and it was kind of a meta call, except expecting a fair amount of Manectric.
More for Luke Bats.
And Luke Bats, yeah.
I said there was a lot of Luke Bats, Manectric and Toad Tina and stuff like that. I didn't play majority of them. I played more Night March, really, if you think about it.
So, the thing is, this seems not exactly a meta counter, because it's not got specific things for each meta deck, but it seems strong against most of the meta decks. Yep. Were there any fringe decks you considered might be a threat?
Well, as I said, Night March, which we go into more detail in our interview for the tournament, which you can also see on our YouTube channel.
Yes.
But yeah, as I said, Ray and Night March were the main things. Otherwise, no, not much else at all.
So, did you not fear, say, a Manectric deck playing 3 Regice or something silly?
No, that's why we have Verizion here.
So, Verizion, well, you know what? Let's start with Verizion. Why is Verizion in this deck? Not starting with the main strategy.
Well, the reason it was put in... So there are 2 reasons in this deck. The reason it was put in was because it's one of the only grass non-EXs that, well, you can really fit in as a 1-card tech and it can kill Regice.
Yeah.
So if you're behind on prizes, it has an attack which says, does 40 damage. If you're behind on prizes, it does 80 more damage, which is 120. And 120 is obviously Regice's HP.
Perfect number. Yeah, that's pretty much what it's in. But you said there were 2 reasons.
Yeah, so the other reason is Bailout, its first attack, which we said it was nice, but we didn't really think about it as much to begin with. Bailout allows you to get 2 Pokemon back from your discard pile, which it doesn't seem too great, but when you're having Ariados, which is very important in certain matchups, or Spinaraks, it can be quite a big thing.
And of course, the main draw for this format is Sycamore. So
Exactly, and you're having to discard stuff.
yeah, did you find it useful throughout the tournament?
Personally, not really. I didn't have to play against any Manectric Regice, so its main purpose wasn't really used. I had to bail out once or twice. Really, it was used more as a threat than anything else. So the threat of the Verizion being there to be able to kill something was enough reason for people to kill it, which is helpful in the trade.
The price count, of course, if you have 1 energy attached, and you just have it sitting on your bench, your opponent doesn't want to go too far ahead or ahead at all in the price trade. Okay, that's number 1. But why don't we talk about the main strategy of the deck first?
So the main
the
main strategy of the deck is to use Jagged Saber, possibly poison them with Ariados, or to set up for an Unseen Claw.
Okay, so
heal.
What does Jagged Saber do?
So Jagged Saber, it's 100 damage for 2 energy, 1 grass and 1 colourless. And you get to attach 2 grass energy, up to 2 grass energy from your hand to your Pokemon any way you like. And if you do, you would damage counters from those Pokemon.
Okay, so it can fully heal while energy accelerating.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's not just the Jagged Saber that you use as an attack in this deck.
No, so you also use the normal and the promo. So you use those 2 as your secondary attackers, or your primary attackers depending on the matchup.
Yeah.
So in matchups such as Giratina decks, you actually attack with the baby more than the Mega.
Yeah. So what does it do?
So we've got the Sep one, which I have a full art and a non-full art of in the deck, which does does first attack is Sleep Poison, which we can go more in detail on Sleep Poison. I'll go through the attackers first. Second attack is Unseen Claw, which for a grass and a colourless again does 6 damage. If they're affected by a special condition, it does 130.
So it's 70 more.
Yeah.
So of course that special condition in this deck is primarily poison,
which means it'd be 140 base.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 140 for 2 energy. I mean, without even muscle band, sounds pretty strong. And
yeah, it sets you up for, say, Shaymin, Sky Return possibly.
Okay.
Or even just an agility plus poison.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact you have the full art in here, I guess, is to obscure the arts so that people don't notice the promo one.
Personally, I like the artwork of the full art.
Okay. All right, I'm sure that just is just a natural occurrence of having the promo. Why don't you explain how the promo works or what it does?
So the promo has 2 attacks. The first is agility, which, as agility has always done throughout time, is flip a coin. If heads, prevent all effective attacks done to this Pokemon. And that's for 1 grass and it does 20 damage.
Okay, so it's not too bad an attack to finish something off, for example.
The second attack, which is called Strong Slash.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Or 3 grass energy, does 130 damage, but you can't use that attack next turn, which 130 actually hits quite nice numbers.
And of course, well, I mean, say if you do not have your Ariados in play, or
you can't.
Yeah, or you don't have your opponent's active is not under a special condition.
Right.
You can use that for a permanent or guaranteed 130.
Yes,
okay. So I mean, that was me asking a question.
Yeah, so
and answering it in one.
So against Lucario bats, they target down your Ariados, so you won't have it. However, Baby can actually kill Crobats.
Yeah. So I mean, it gives you an option against those kind of decks. What about I mean, the 2 Shaymin and Hoopa are quite obvious, but say if people are kind of new to the game and they're wanting to find out.
Yeah, so Shaymin and Hoopa are kind of the backbone of most EX-based decks at the moment.
Yeah.
So Hoopa, I'll start with Hoopa. Hoopa, search your deck for 3 in any combination of EXs, which Megas count as EXs.
Okay, so it includes Megas.
That's its ability. The attack I have never seen used, and I doubt I ever will.
Well, I've got a kind of kooky deck that could.
Which might appear on here at some point.
Nope.
It might win a regional.
Nope. Literally no chance.
So the attack's not worth looking at. It's got 200 retreat cost, which is a pain sometimes, but it's a necessity because it gets you out 3 EXs.
Okay.
So Shaymin. Shaymin might be the most expensive EX we currently have in the format.
Sitting about £25.
Yep, at the time of this video. Shaymin X has an ability called Setup. When you play it from your hand, you draw into your 6 cards left in your hand, which
obviously very strong.
Very strong, and its attack is also very strong. Sky Return, put it back in your hand for 2 colourless.
Yeah,
and
I've noticed decks even without playing double colourless can make use of this attack. Do you want to explain?
So obviously this deck, as we talked about with Mega Sceptile, can attach 2 energy anywhere. So you don't necessarily need to attach 2 to the Shaymin early. Well, you just attach 1 early, and then later on you attach another and return it to your hand if you need to. You don't always have to.
How come you would attach 1 to it? What would be the primary reason?
So you, this is more for Hoopa. You attach 1 to Hoopa late game because Hoopa's Lysandre target. Now late game you might have a scoop up left, you might not. You don't want to rely on it.
Yeah.
Now if you have 1 energy on Hoopa, you can always retreat it for 1 more.
By discarding 2.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the same reasoning with Shaymin.
With Shaymin, it's less of a reason that. With Shaymin, it's more if you feel you're going to need to. So, say against Night March, if I have to play down a Shaymin early, I will attach 1 grass because at some point I'll want to Sky Return on a Joltik.
Okay, just to take the easy prize and be able to set up next turn. Okay, so now we've got those here basically because they're the X's. And we talked through Verizion as well, but what are these nice little support Pokemon here?
So it's Ariados. We've already talked through Verizion. Ariados has an ability which just once per turn you can poison both active Pokemon, but not grass Pokemon.
Right.
So obviously Sceptile itself doesn't become poisoned.
Yeah.
Interestingly, it has an attack which I didn't get around to using, but is very useful. It's called Imprison. It does 30 damage. Impound, sorry. Imprison is the one from the actual video game.
Okay.
It does 30 damage and your opponent can't retreat.
Right, so in combination with its ability, that could actually come in quite handy sometimes.
Yeah, 30 damage is nice because it kills Night Marchers and other stuff like that. And yeah, if you Lysandre up, say, a Hawlucha and use Impound and they haven't got any AZs or switches left, Hawlucha can never attack Ariados.
Yeah.
So it just sits there until it dies.
And what about the Spinarak? I mean, is there to evolve into the Ariados?
Spinarak is it's more of a clutch play, but it has an attack which for 1 energy, flip a coin if your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralysed.
I believe that's colourless as well, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you can just attach to it, paralyse, and you might get a turn, which doesn't seem like much, but a turn you can paralyse a Regice and reset it.
Yeah, and of course that can help you knock it out with say a Sceptile. Okay, well those are the Pokemon. As you can see, it's actually quite straightforward. Not really gone for... This Verizion wasn't even in the list for a long time. It just became a tech because Regice was quite popular. So, how about we go on to the supporter line? We start with 4 Sycamore, which is straightforward.
It's the standard, just discard 7. Well, discard your hand, draw 7.
Discard 7.
It could be discard 7.
And, yeah, so it's just the best draw in the game.
Yeah, and we play 4 because this deck needs to get a good turn 1.
Yeah. I mean... You also have the bailout option.
Yeah, and it's just such a strong card to have anyway.
Okay, now how about the 1 Birch? What made you decide Birch
so
over Shauna?
You need a 5th draw supporter anyway, so you need to play one of the 2. With this deck, 5 cards isn't always enough. Now, with this deck you need to be drawing, say, your Mega, your Energy, you need to have Verse Seeker for the next turn. So at that point, the difference between 4 and 5 is so little, you actually just need to have 7.
Okay, so you just kind of...
You have to go for it.
Yeah,
and if you're 1 short, it's less of an issue than in other decks where you might want this 5th card.
So you don't have to bank on the flip, but getting the flip is such an advantage with this deck. Now, the 2 Hex Maniac actually was quite a recent... We only had 1, and what happened to make the second one come in there?
So the main reason was...
No, we did. We only had 1 for ages.
No, Ben originally had 2. At some point it got lost. We believe it was our...
Just 1 went missing.
We believe it was our previous national champion Robert Kinbram who took it out and had the smart idea. But we'll verify that later. So we put in a second one after testing against Giratina variants, and we found that it's a very hard matchup to win.
Yeah, unless you can Jagged Saber.
Yeah, and you can't Jagged Saber and damage.
Yeah.
So with the double Hex... Well, especially against Tinatis, which you're primarily playtesting against, Tinatis, they rely on having Aromatisse. If you can hit them and block Aromatisse, then you can kill that Giratina.
Then they can't AZ.
Well, they lose their energy, and energy is the important thing in that deck.
And of course, 2 Lysandre quite standard.
Yeah, I've seen it in most decks. The wonderful art is just because it looks nice.
Fair enough. And I mean, the 1 AZ, not every deck plays it. But Keta, just briefly explain why this one does.
it's just a nice pickup card. It's good for Shaymin, it's good for Hoopa. And at points you don't need to worry about energy for... Well, yeah, you actually want to get rid of your energy because it's a guaranteed scoop up, which is always a nice card just to have access to.
There is another... I mean, the Energy Retrieval here, it can work in combination with, which we'll get to that card specifically in a minute. And of course, for... Oh, sorry, you have a point?
AZ in the mirror match is also useful in case you get sleep poisoned.
Okay, that's very true. I mean, there isn't really a mirror match, but sure.
There was. And, it's a sad it wasn't streamed. I'm sure we can do a rematch if Joe ever wants to.
Nope. Okay, so right, that was AZ, and of course 4 VS Seekers, fairly standard. 3 Trainers Mail as well. Just
4 Ultra Balls play the most standard thingy.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the Trainers Mail is a bit more important in this deck than some others.
Yeah, so we would play 4, but we can't fit it. If somebody wants to try, they're welcome to. But yeah, you have 3 because you need so many cards. You need Forest Giant Plants, you need the Spirit Link, you need the Scoop Ups. The support is not as much. Once you draw on it, you're going to get it. But the Verse Seekers, especially to get AZ and Lysandre options, are just too important.
Yeah, 4 Ultra Ball, obviously very standard. But now I come to what I'd argue is the biggest card in the deck.
And it was the hardest choice to decide which art to use.
Yeah, we've actually gone for here specifically the Piplup art, which I think was necessary.
It was a hard choice between Piplup art and the Neo Revelations or Neo Discovery. Magnemite art.
What made you choose the Piplup art?
It fits in with my sleeves.
Why is Super Scoop Up so important in this deck?
So a lot of people have gone for the Energy Retrieval variant, where you just play 3 with Energy Retrieval, have your AZ. It's okay. So
explain briefly how that play would work.
So the idea is that Mega Sceptile has a 2 energy retreat cost, so you just retreat, Energy Retrieval, reattach energy, heal yourself.
Okay.
Problem is, you don't always have enough Megas to do that.
Right. So you'd need a Mega down and two Megas down, right?
Which, there's problems with that. So Headring is the main one, which is another reason where AZ and Super Scoop are really helpful. It's also you can get one relatively easily, but you can sometimes just miss cards at the wrong time.
So it's useful for the Megas. And the other thing I think, with Energy Retrieval, of course, you can only get energy back from the discard pile, but Super Scoop Up has another use.
So Super Scoop Up gets you the energy into your hand, but it also gets back your Pokemon, which gets back your Pokemon, such as Shaymin and Hoopa, which I did mention with AZ.
Yeah.
And obviously they're both Scoop Up effects. Obviously with the Sceptile, it has different effects because AZ can't pick up extra cards attached. With Shaymin and Hoopa, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, so I mean, the reason people haven't found this deck to be working much for them is because without Super Scoop Up, you can't pick up the Shaymins.
Well, it's also... one, you can't pick up the Shaymins. 2, you'd probably just lose the Lysandre stall on the Hoopa because, okay, you can attach energy, but you're wasting your energy on a Hoopa.
Yeah. Okay.
You retreat it, they Lysandre again, eventually you're just going to lose.
Yeah, so often you want to pick up a Hoopa and then even discard it, maybe.
Or just never... but you're never going to put it down again regardless.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, what I found is that this deck's main consistency is that those Super Scoop Ups will count as energy retrievals over the game, but also...
they have other
Shaymin use, yeah. So,
turn 1, if you go first against Lucario Bats, they'll damage you. Now, you don't want to have a damaged Sceptile on field because then they can 2-hit KO it or 3-hit KO it much easier.
Especially if it's the one attacking.
Yeah, because you can't heal yourself. Super Scoop Up allows you to basically have a Sceptile sitting there to die and then pick it up and not have to worry about it.
Okay.
So the other advantage of Super Scoop Up is that you don't have to waste energy if you're switching between 2 baby Sceptiles, which, okay, discarding energy is still the same as, I guess, using Energy Retrieval later on, but yeah, it can just work out better.
And sometimes I guess you need to Jagged Saber follow it up with something else.
Yeah.
Perhaps an Unseen Claw or an Agility.
And it's also bench space is quite an issue in this deck. As you have Ariados, which takes up 1 bench space, you can have Hoopa, which is another bench space, and you can have Shaymin, which is another bench space. That's 3 bench spaces gone, so you only have 2 left, plus your Sceptile. If you've had to play a second Shaymin, you only have 1 Sceptile, another Sceptile bench space, which isn't a lot. You kind of want to have 3 Sceptiles on board.
Okay. And the 3 Sceptile Spirit Link, I assume, fairly obvious.
You would want a fourth, but you can only play 60 cards at the end of the day.
I mean, there's one advantage to this deck is that you can actually Mega Evolve turn 1.
Yes, with the 4 plant forest, which is one of the main reasons we play 4 plant forest. Other reason is Stadium Wars is quite big against Lucario bats, and also Manectric Regice, with Rough Season Manectric Regice and Fighting Stadium and Lucario bats.
There's one other deck as well that is pretty big.
So it's quite big against Night March as well, because of Dimension Valley, and then finally the big one is Ray.
Yeah,
Which-
glad you realised.
You start with the more fringe stuff, and then move your way up.
If you say so.
Yes.
Okay, so
Ray obviously has to have 8 Pokemon to one-hit KO a Sceptile, and if they don't one-hit KO it, you scoop it up or heal it or whichever. So if you're replacing their stadium every single time and using Hex Maniac, it's quite hard for them to recover.
And I guess against that deck, you just be a little bit careful and perhaps don't Stadium first.
There's an argument for you having to Stadium first to get the Mega so that they have to then get 8 Pokemon, because if you just have the baby, they'll still go Skyfields, but they'll only put 6 Pokemon, so they don't lose the Pokemon resource.
Okay.
So I think you actually have to Mega first still.
Okay. You mean Stadium?
Sorry, Stadium to then Mega turn 1.
Okay, well we've got 3 individual one-offs here. Professor's Letter, Energy Retrieval and Escape Rope. We'll briefly discuss the merits of each.
Professor's Letter is just, you can play an 11th energy, but Professor's Letter is just an easier option. It gets you 2 energy, which obviously this attaches 2 energy, so it's more useful.
Yeah.
I mean, 11th energy, you can play 11th energy if you don't like Professor's Letter for whatever reason, but
it's strong as well with Trainer's Mail.
yeah, it's more outs to the card.
Yeah, it makes Trainer's Mail an easier out to energy, I assume.
Yeah.
Energy Retrieval, I think we briefly discussed.
Yeah, we've only played one where some people obviously might want to play more.
But of course, our scoop ups count for those anyway. So.
Yes.
And lastly, Escape Rope, which actually is, which is warrants a little bit of discussion.
So Escape Rope is well, I think first of all you want to play another switching card regardless, because AZ's a guaranteed switch, and Super Scoop Up will be a switch, but they're very iffy sometimes.
Well, they're flips.
Yeah, exactly, and flips can be in your favour or against you for the whole day, depending on how you feel.
Well, it's not depending on how you feel, it's depending on how it goes.
It will seem like it's how you feel.
Okay, I'll just cut that bit out.
Okay. So yeah, you want another switching card, and Escape Rope is a good option because, as we said before, one of your main issues can be Regice. As your main attack is an EX, it's really hard to deal with. Escape Rope allows you to escape rope, then Lysandre around it to reset the Regice and then kill it.
Yeah, which is it's a bit unfortunate this is going out, because Escape Rope Lysandre is a place so many people miss, and people are just running switches instead of Escape Rope in most decks, and now we've just told everyone how to play against it.
Great. Cut it out if it comes to it.
No, it's fine. I'm sure people work it out anyway. I'm not that arrogant. Yeah, Escape Rope, Lysandre. I mean, it's not just a Regice play, is it? There are other things.
Well, other than Regice, there's also cases where, in my finals against Vespiquen,
yeah.
I was able to Escape Rope to force out. What did I force out? I think I forced out his Combi or a Shaymin because he used Dragon as a stall card against me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to kill the Dragon just because it's not useful to kill it. So he used Escape Rope and he had to bring out something else. Yeah. I also used it against Luke Burke to force out a Night Marcher. Misplayed on the follow up to it, but it's the same principle. That it's a cheap Lysandre.
Yeah, it can work as a Lysandre sometimes.
Because you can play around it, but then that means putting down more Pokemon. And those particular decks, they don't want to bench unnecessary cards.
Yeah. So say if your opponent's limited to 2 or 3 bench.
Yeah, well, especially in Night March, what else can they bench other than a Night Marcher or a Shaymin?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, they don't have any other.
Apart from the Feebas, but then itself, that's a target anyway.
Yeah. Which is actually maybe sometimes a more important target,
yeah.
I assume. Okay, so with Forest of Giant Plants, notice the high count of 4 here. Why exactly is that?
So, as I said earlier, you play 4 because of the Rayquaza matchup, where you need to replace the stadium cards often to get rid of their resources, as I said earlier, and also against Manectric, Regice, and Lucario bats to get rid of their stadiums.
Okay, so
mainly for Stadium Wars.
That's for the Stadium War, but there's actually the primary reason
is you want to get Mega Sceptile turn 1 if you can, because you can't always get the Spirit Link. With Hoopa, you can usually guarantee to get the Sceptile on the Mega, especially with the 4 Ultra Ball, and you just want to be able to do it turn 1.
Of course, because you can just put the Sceptile and go straight to the Mega.
Yeah.
I mean, probably want to attach an energy first. But
If you can. If not, it's still just sometimes advantageous to get the Mega out.
And of course that leads us nicely into energy, because I said that word.
Yes.
I said the word energy. So there's 10. Why that specific number?
If you could play more, you wouldn't want to play less. 10 just seems a good amount. There's not really much else to say about it.
I mean,
it's five attachment effects, I guess. So you can,
possibly more super scoop ups and retrieval.
with energy retrieval it becomes 6 without scoop up. So say in the worst case scenario where you get 0 scoop up flips, it's still 6 possible attacks.
And heals.
But 6 is enough to win a game effectively, because that's 2 appearing EXs.
Okay, so I mean, you won a regional with this deck. Would you? I think I may have asked in the other video, but would you recommend this play as a deck to play for upcoming regionals or?
Yes, I would recommend it to play, and I'll play Quad Macargo as a counter deck.
Okay, so I mean, you can still poison Macargo and kill it with the Jagged Saber. So you recommend it being played. The set XY Breakthrough has recently come out. How do you feel this deck fares? In terms of that format?
It can survive the format. There's nothing in that set which destroys this deck outright. I mean, Parallel City is not good for it. Parallel City is quite bad, really. But I think you can deal with it, because you have the Forest Giant Plants. But even with Parallel City, it's actually not too bad. If they do it after turn 1, you just discard your Shaymans and your Hoopas.
Okay, what about if they play it with a Giratina and a Chaos Wheeling?
It really depends on which orientation they play it.
Okay, so I mean, I assume they're going to lower your bench.
In that situation, there is one option, or 2 options. One of them is Sleep Poison, and the other is String Shot.
I mean, I assume. Let me think. If you only have 3 bench, you'd have an active Sceptile.
Active Sceptile, an Ariados, and either 2 more Sceptiles or a Sceptile and a Verizion.
That's a lot of active Pokemon. But yeah, sorry, it's just the way you phrased it. But okay, so you reckon it can still survive. What if they did play it the other way? What if they lowered your attack damage?
Against Giratina, still fine, because Unseen Claw would still put them on 120 damage effective to them, and then a poisoned Jagged Saber would still kill them. So damage wise, you're not too bad off.
Yeah, you can still 2-hit as you always would. Okay. Are there any other cards you'd fear from this set? How about Judge? How does this deck feel with only 4 cards?
Oh, well, having got a few Birch Tails over the day, I think Judge you can manage. We might change the layout a bit, maybe try and fit an extra Shaymin if we were that worried, but you can deal with it.
Okay.
I think most decks will be able to, because Sycamore's such a strong recovery card.
Are there any cards that you feel would benefit this deck?
From the new sets, Giovanni is an interesting idea, might be useful as a one-off, but other than that, not many.
Okay. I think there's a certain card that could help the deck maybe quite a bit.
Floatstone's an idea for the deck, but it's not one that I think you can find space for.
Okay. So, I mean, I personally think the Floatstone on the first Mega Sceptile could be incredibly
It could be useful, but the problem is you'd have to play at least 3 to guarantee that. It was late game, it's not a useful card.
Okay. That's fair. I accept that. It also would stop the Hoopa being my sand so much.
It would. But then if it's taking up 3 spaces and is only ever used once, it almost feels like it's taking up too much space to be useful. So Giovanni would take up 1 supporter space, which you can easily manage. Now you wouldn't take out the scoop ups, you wouldn't take out the escape rope, you'd have to take out something vitally important to fit in the floatstone.
Okay, so what about any other attackers? Do you feel it could partner with them, or do you think it's just best left as a Sceptile, Mega Sceptile?
If you want to try and fit in a Trevenant EX maybe as a possible secondary attacker, as it's another grass EX, if you're trying to find fringe grass attackers to use. Some people tried Lugia. One of Lugia is possibly okay if you fear Lugia Wars, possibly, I don't know.
But then you'd need a Muscle Man.
But in terms of attackers, there's only other 2 viable attackers I can see that you could pair this with if you really wanted to. Otherwise, no, I wouldn't see pairing it with anything.
Okay, so that just about wraps up our deck video. I'll maybe do some demonstration of the deck online if or
We have a few
Adam may
recorded
want to.
games.
We have a couple of recorded games which we can now release because the deck's been played and won, so that's all good. And hope you watch those stuff. I'll make a convincing ending.